Digital music. Friends. Digital music. Friends. Digital music. Friends. Digital music.
Hello everyone and welcome to Digital Music Trends, the weekly show bringing you the latest news and the hottest companies in the digital music landscape. Digital Music Trends is available as both audio and video, and it's a multi-platform show, so you can subscribe via iTunes, RSS, most podcatchers, SoundCloud, YouTube, Mixcloud, Stitcher, and these days also via TuneIn Radio. This week I decided to take a break from the traditional weekly panel based on the week's news to showcase properly some of the interviews that I carried out at Midem 2013 during the past week. It was a tough show to edit as I carried out more than 20 interviews in the course of just over 4 days, but if you visit digitalmusictrends.com you will find a full list of the companies interviewed as well as access to the entire interviews. So how did I organize this Midem overview? Well, I had to start with some quick looks at the startups that I interviewed. As you may well know, Digital Music Trends was originally started primarily to cover digital music startups, so I thought it'd be just fair to start with them, and we check out Spins.fm, Pulselocker, JoyTunes and Yasound. In the second part, we move on to more established players, and here I'll feature snippets from conversations I had with Lang Lang, Deezer's CEO Axel Dauchez, Chris Wiltsee from Bandpage and Jez Bell from Omnifone. Then we move on to DMT's very own direct-to-fan and crowdfunding camp, where we hear from Pledge Music CEO Benji Rogers, Kevin Wortis from label services company Girlie Action, Emily White from Whitesmith Entertainment, and David Balfour from Finetunes. Drawing closer to the end, we hear a few bits of news announced on the show by companies like UrTurn, Musixmatch and Musicmetric. Finally, we'll end with the thoughts of a few journalists, analysts and digital experts on the conference and the relevance of Midem in 2013. It's going to be a hell of a ride, so buckle up and I hope you enjoy the show. And I'm here with Ryan Walsh from Pulselocker. So if you wanted to describe Pulselocker in a really short sort of sentence to describe what the company does,
right.
What would you say?
It's a subscription music service for DJs. We allow you to play music like Spotify and buy music like iTunes or Beatport or anything like that. But the cool thing that we do is we have this thing where you, as part of your subscription, you get to try the music out in any DJ application.
Yeah.
So for example, you would take a song, you like it, you play it, you add it to your locker, that song gets downloaded to your computer, you can use it offline in Tractor, Serato, Algorithm DJ, any DJ app. Yeah. So it's part of your subscription, which is pretty cool because now you can play tracks out as part of a subscription.
Absolutely, and so there's two sides of the story, I think. On the one side, there's the technology side, of course, as you talked about, with the ability of third-party applications to tap into the tracks that are in your locker. Mm-hmm. And the other side, of course, which is so important for DJs, is the content side. Because, of course, you're a specialized service.
Right. And
like Beatport did for purchasing music, downloading music online, you are specializing in doing content deals with labels that wouldn't otherwise maybe all be on Spotify or all be on the traditional streaming services, right? So how did you go about convincing them that this model is worth going for? And, of course, they are used to see a fairly high revenue for the sale of tracks because a lot of DJs still buy music.
Right.
So how do you convince them on your model that it's going to work and it's going to make them money?
Right. So there's a couple parts of that. One, I myself am a producer and a DJ, and I have small label releases. Yeah. Alro also is a label owner, so he has small label releases and has gone through the difficulties of being a small label himself. So we come from the business, and so that helps a lot. So
Absolutely.
It's not like we're random people that are just showing up as, hey, give us your content for free. Yeah. But the thing that is that helped us the most is some of the research that we saw from Spotify actually helping iTunes sales.
Yeah.
And when we did a lot of market research. I always say I definitely am not the final decision maker in terms of what happens with Pulselocker. The customers and the DJs are.
Of course.
I just have one opinion. So when we asked over 200 DJs, people that we know, everybody from world famous DJs to a guy with a club in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
What they thought, and they said that's great. I really would like to use a subscription music service. I would use it, but if it doesn't give me the ability to buy the songs, it's less attractive.
Yeah.
So that was a really big learning that we didn't think that was going to be the case. We thought that people would try to replace it, and we thought it was going to have to be too expensive, and the labels wouldn't go for it. But in effect, almost 80% of the DJs that we talked to said, I will still buy music we just want to use a subscription for tracks that are something that I would play once or for a one-off gig or something like that.
Yeah.
So DJs are still in an ownership culture, and that I think that's working to our advantage. And the labels all know that anyway.
Midem 2013 with Igal Kaminka, co-founder and content manager for one of the startups that are in the Midem Lab competition this year. So the startup is called JoyTunes, and I want to hear all about it. So hi Igal, and how's it going today?
Thank you very much. Well, JoyTunes is all about music education and actually revolutionizing the music education and the way we start learning instruments. The music education way of learning is basically stayed the same for the last 300-400 years, and only lately it started really getting a push from apps. You know, have a lot of music education apps, and we're really taking it to the next step. We're letting you learn to play a musical instrument with an app, but you use your own instruments with no cables or no hardware needed, just polyphonic acoustic recognition in real time. You use your own instrument to play as a game controller to play the app, and we build it in such a way that it teaches you how to play. So this is like a medium beginner medium difficulty level. I hope you can all see this. I'll try to do it like Okay, so I'm activating the keyboard, and it responds to my playing. You could put the microphone here. So of course, if I don't play, nothing is happening. It responds directly to my playing, and
recognizes the notes.
Recognizes the notes in real time.
That's great. And it's the first day of Midem, and I'm here with David Baker and Ben Weiss from the company Spins.fm. How did the company start out?
Sure. So it came out of a totally natural need for some clients that I had worked with in the past. I've been doing digital strategy and web marketing for a number of major label artists, and all of them love radio. So despite the fact that all these streaming services are becoming a lot more popular, radio still has more listeners than all the streaming services combined. So artists, love radio, but it's increasingly difficult for them to leverage their online fan base to offline conversion with radio. So an artist named Travis Porter, it's a rap trio from Atlanta. They were one of our first clients, and we had created the application for them, and a number of other Sony artists and executives then saw it and said, hey, we want that for our artists or for a number of other artists. And Britney Spears then was our first kind of huge artist that used it, and from there we've had great adoption. Chris Brown, Diddy, Missy Elliott, John Legend, tons of huge major label artists have been really supportive and been using our app.
Absolutely, and I'll explain how it worked at the beginning, because I'm just wondering, you had all these requests for people that wanted the track to be played on radio, and then how did you pass that on to the radios if you didn't have a pre-existing relationships with them?
Sure. So the radio stations don't need to be using our app in order to receive the requests. It's all filtered just through Facebook and Twitter. So how it works, the fan connects either with Facebook or Twitter, which verifies their identity and their location, and then depending on which song they're requesting and where they're located, we display the relevant local stations, and it's delivered to the station either as an @ message on Twitter or as a Facebook wall post.
Oh, it's awesome. That's great. So do you work directly with radios now, or
we do? Yep, absolutely. So we started just focusing primarily on the artists, but in order to make this product successful, we now have to have the radio stations on board as well. And in the U.S., we have 3 of the biggest broadcasting companies now using our app, which is really exciting. If they do install the application, they get a lot more metrics and reporting, filtering by song automatically, by location. So there's definitely some advantages for them using it. And we're actually really excited here at Midem. We're announcing that we're expanding to the UK, to Canada, and to France as well.
I'm happy to have on the show Sébastien Métro, who's the CEO of the company Yasound. So what does Yasound do?
Sure. It's a bold statement, but we want to revolutionize radio on the internet. When you look at web radios, there are in the worldwide radio world, there is only a little more than 40,000 radio. If you compare that to the number of Facebook accounts, blogs, Twitter accounts, videos on YouTube, stuff like that, it's like nothing. It's non-existing. But still, people want to listen to streaming audio. They still listen to music. They want to discover new music. They want to discover new talent. And so we think there is a big opportunity there. And we think also that radio is the only media that hasn't been changed really by the internet.
Yeah.
So the way it works, the way there is ads, stuff like that. There is no change in radio right now.
Yeah.
And we want to change that. So we felt the first step was to make it very easy to create a radio. So this is something we think we achieved with version 2.
Yeah.
Because you can just create a radio from a playlist on your iPhone and edit your radio from your iOS device and from the web.
Yeah.
And it's like really 4 clicks and like 10 seconds to create a radio. And now we want to go a little bit further, because now people sometimes compare us to Spotify or Deezer, and we feel there is a much more to do than just being a Deezer-like or Spotify-like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're really pushing towards live shows, talk shows, just like we are doing right now, and DJ sets, everything that will really be more like a real media with not just music, but also a whole new world.
Really happy to be here with Lang Lang. You're a big, proponent of social media, and you are on Twitter and Facebook a lot. And how do you see people really engaging with not just yourself but also your music through channels like Spotify and all these new streaming sites that are out there?
I think all those new platforms such as Spotify, I think it's a very cool idea.
Yeah.
And we all create pages, personal artist pages on those wonderful new platform for distributing music.
Absolutely.
And I think we need that, actually. We actually need the platform to share classical music.
Yeah.
And not only music itself, but also educational component.
Sure.
I think it's also important, like masterclass, the educational events.
Yeah.
Very creative programs.
Absolutely.
So I think there are many things we can still,
With
do
those.
with those ideas.
Looking at technology as an enabler also for you as a recording artist, of course. How do you feel about being in the studio and recording an album? How do you go about that process? And do you get involved at all in the sound of your piano and how your piano sounds in the recording?
Yeah, I think more and more I'm getting involved. First recording, you talk to your producer and get a lot of great suggestion from the recording team.
Yeah.
But then you listen many years later, and you're recording your current album, you find how do you change from those years and what's the process. And now, obviously, when I make a recording, I have something to say about what kind of sound I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Which is very important. Otherwise, you will never find yourself.
No.
You need to have certain identity from your recordings. Yeah. It's a different than live recording. It's very different. When you are in the studio, there's a lot of rooms you can try to really being part of the recreation, and that's the fun part in the studio.
Yeah.
Today if you're not happy, stop making a recording and come back tomorrow. Not like concert. You no matter how happy or how sad you are, you need to play well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a different situation.
Sure, and of course, it's also a way of giving a mood to a whole album.
Yeah.
Which is consistent.
Right.
And that's
Right. The whole picture and how you work precisely on certain things on the third day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, or the fifth day, you're thinking a different way of interpreting, but in the end, you need to find a way to all fit in.
Yeah.
Somehow. So that's the balance issue.
Of course, you should keep. And in terms of audio quality, of course, a lot has been said about audio quality being the next step for music online. So, now we have fairly compressed music that we listen to and we buy from the stores. And what's your take on, for example, lossless versus MP3s? Can you hear the difference? And does it bother you if a file is compressed with your classical music?
I have a quite good machine and a quite good headphone in my bag, actually, the MP3 player. And I like the sound. For me, it's when I listen to that and when I listen to CD, there's not a big difference.
Yeah.
I actually try to really see what's the difference. But recently, I think the distance are getting very small.
Yeah,
but 5 years ago or 10, 5 years ago was a huge difference.
Yeah.
When you live stream on internet, you're like, oh, this is pretty bad quality. And the people are like slow motion, or some breaked. But today, when you do live stream, it's pretty high. So it's technology will improve all the time. And the speed of internet will improve. So that helps.
I'm here with the CEO of Deezer, Axel Dauchez, and Deezer is been relatively open on their API front as well. What's your take on third-party developers accessing the API of Deezer or using some of the information that comes from Deezer for applications?
It's crucial. We decided to focus all our innovation on R&D to the core service, which is provide the best music service. And so opening the API is really externalizing all the innovation worldwide.
Yeah.
For the past 20 years, the music has been very difficult to deal with for any kind of developers, country per country. It was very complex. And finally, those API allow to liberate, to unleash all the innovation worldwide.
Yeah.
Whether you are a small developer or car manufacturers, to seamless access to 20 million tracks in 200 countries. It was a dream in the past, now it's reality.
Yeah.
We made that choice of trying to be global.
Yeah.
It was a hard choice. It was a choice with a lot of corresponding investment.
Sure.
We did it not only to catch the emerging market growth. Of course, for that, yesterday the market is very concentrated in 6 markets. Now Brazil, Turkey, Indonesia will become contributing for the good sake of everybody.
Yeah.
It's also because we believe that every, even tiny markets, it's at the same time a source of creation. And if you give access to those artists to the worldwide market, finally you are changing the charts and the consumption pattern, even in the existing big countries. Because so far, what you're listening in France, in the US, is mainly driven by the distribution structure, not by the creation and its match with the audience. So being global was a way for us to really break down the barrier for every creator to have access to the audience it deserves.
And that's super interesting because, in a way, it relates to the way in which YouTube is breaking artists right now, because there are a global presence, and videos that are broadcast in the UK can be seen in South Korea, like in Japan, and so having a global vision of Deezer as a company that is present in so many territories also allows you to come in and actually help break an act if you want to.
It's incredibly true. What YouTube showed, specifically with Gangnam Style, but also with others, is the fact that when you offer the access to any artistic audience, the worldwide audience, suddenly you see momentum you've never seen before.
Yeah.
The difference is in YouTube, it's just an access. It doesn't give access to the market. It gives access to the audience. With our system, it's the same. But we really provide any creator the access to the market it deserves.
Yeah. So I'm here with Jez Bell, a Chief Content Officer at Omnifone. So a big part also of the way your business succeeds is for the services that you work with to be successful services. So that's an interesting place to be as well, because it means that you're not just a provider of a license, you also need to steer maybe the conversations sometimes?
Well, we have
partners,
a lot of product expertise within the team. We have a lot of business and licensing expertise. So it's they are partners. We're not creating a service and then letting the partner sort of go off and do their own things. It's very much a partner. For it to work, it needs to be very much a partner relationship, and it needs to be something where we provide input on a continuing basis, and that works very, very well. Certainly with the major clients.
Yeah.
What we're looking at doing now as well is to, one of the next stages for the company is to see what we can do to offer access to the platform and to all of the tracks that we've ingested to smaller businesses.
Yeah.
So we're looking at creating a suite of APIs where people will be able to come and, from it's a basic tick list, choose which elements of functionality they want to be able to run their service. And in some instances, we'll be able to provide off-the-shelf licensing as well. So we're looking at a white label solution with that. So that will bring a whole new generation of smaller customers into the realm as well.
That would be amazing because, of course, we all know how difficult it is to go out there, and if you're not Sony or Aurora and you don't have like a big amount of funding behind you, but you do have a good idea as to how you can monetize music, it's almost prohibitive to even think about doing large scale deals or having a large catalog, because it's just the human the manpower that you need to gather those licenses is so huge that it just destroys the business before you've even started.
Yeah, and I think driving innovation is a critical part of it, and one of the things that we're trying to do with this new package of services is to have something at the lower end which will enable a very simple solution for people to get access to music, to be able to actually experiment.
Yeah.
So to really drive that sort of grassroots innovation.
And it's great because, of course, we know about the experiments that Sony has done, EMI has done with their sandboxes and looking at working with developers on an API. But even those efforts, of course, are limited to one label, are limited to a specific catalog, and they're limited in the scope of the service. In that, if they want to take the service in any way to a commercial level, they have to then negotiate everything directly with the label, and that becomes a slightly more difficult conversation. The product has to be approved and all that. So of course, having a service that will be third party that already has licenses across the board, that would really raise the bar for developers and for the guys upstairs working at the Hack Day.
That's very much the plan, to be able to create an environment where people can where it's not a limited set of repertoire, where people have got access to everything and a fairly sort of flexible set of APIs to call on.
I'm here with Chris Wiltsee, who is the head of business development for Bandpage.
Essentially, in our particular case, an API allowed us to get into the market. So in this case, it was a Facebook API that we built the Bandpage application as a Facebook app. And at that time, there was no easy way or elegant way for a band to market themselves on Facebook. So 3 years ago, they were still pointing to MySpace, even though the fans had all, for the most part, left.
Yeah.
In that instance, our founders did a beautiful job on executing a really good app, and so we just had a rocket ride of a takeoff. One of the things we talked about in the panel, and there was a lot of interest about Bandpage because of the vulnerability. At the same time, in developing to a single platform, it was sort of like a devil's bargain, I suppose. Where we had a tremendous opportunity, and when we grew accordingly, and it afforded us an amazing amount of scale in a short amount of time. And part of that was identifying a real need, executing well, and on a huge platform. But when Facebook changed directions and ushered in the timeline, for us, what that meant was a big hit to the traffic. We're still on Facebook. We're still a top 10 music app on Facebook, but the traffic levels are significantly reduced. And so we talked on the panel about dependencies, how to control and minimize risk, how companies work together, what are some optimal arrangements, that kind of thing. I think to do it again, would we do it any different? I honestly don't think we would do it any different. It would have been better if we had been ready to roll out our next sets of tools
right away,
because we were frankly well down the path of developing our own APIs so that we could get the band page into other platforms and share the band page across the web and mobile. But the timeline shift essentially caught us before we were ready. The same, I guess, vulnerability that that hurt us when the timeline came out is the API is also what is saving Bandpage. And so when we think about where we're headed, it is an API-driven strategy. So we launched 3 API releases in the last 6 months. The first one we rolled out to our bands, and we basically gave them their band page that they could use off of Facebook. And so they could essentially, we widgetized it, and they could take pieces of it, and so they could replace maybe the player or the tour dates, power the player, the tour dates, or the bio, or any other section of their website with the band page. And that way, when they update their band page, it'll update to their website, update to Facebook, and anywhere else it's integrated. And we saw really good adoption of that. We have about 100,000 or so of those integrations out now across the web, which is incredible, for an app that was on one platform to now be across, so many artist-controlled properties was great.
Here
with Benji Rogers, the CEO of Pledge. People that listen to the show are going to be familiar with the company, but just give us a very quick overview.
Sure. The concept of Pledge was that there was a lot of crowdfunding companies in the space, and there was a few when we launched it, and we really wanted to go in a different direction, more in the direct to fan direction, I guess it would be. And the concept really was that rather than say, fund my album and then I'll go make it, you would position it more as pledge here to be a part of the release of my new album. And from day one, you get access to a special part of the site that would have on it rough mixes, live tracks, demos, video blogs. And the reward for pledging is that you unlock this layer of, fan engagement. And that you could pledge in multiple different ways, and that a part of the profits could be given to a charity of the artist's choice. So what we saw was that whereas a crowdfunding campaign would last 30 or 60 days and then end, ours would continue from launch through till release of the record. And that meant that there was a lot more the artist would do better financially. The fans would engage throughout the process, and someone would show up and give money to a charity, which can't be bad. Fundamentally, do music fans want to fund music, or do they want to see behind-the-scenes stuff? Do they want to hear stuff before everybody else? And we built, the means to deliver the digital content. I hate that word. Deliver the digital music to the fans, and we help the artists get fulfill the physical stuff. And really, what I viewed it was that we wanted to be the thinnest layer between fan and artist, so the artist is comfortable. And some of the social technology we built means that when the artist does a pledges only update, which we call them pledges only updates, it emails the fan directly. It auto feeds the artist's Facebook and Twitter. But if I'm a fan and I've pledged, that same update will feed my Facebook and Twitter. Each fan becomes like a sharing layer. So if you were just to run a 30 or 60 day campaign, that's not enough time to activate your entire fan base. So our campaigns will run 3, 4, 5, 6 months, even sometimes a year. And as long as the artist delivers incredible music, videos, experiences, doesn't get boring. What it is that crowdfunding's brilliance lies in proof of concept. If enough people want this watch, I'll build it. But music has a very different dynamic. And so when I look at traditional crowdfunding campaigns that go out, they're often, the price points aren't thought through very carefully. We vet those projects. We help them get the campaign to where it's going to succeed, because my whole thing is that I don't want to have thousands and thousands of bands, succeeding to this level. I want to have bands who have a better shot. And it's, I never learned music business marketing when I was a musician. I could barely figure out how to tie my shoelaces. So I needed a team to help me. And we've assembled a team of people who've run thousands of these campaigns now, who go, you can't offer a signed CD and baked cookies for $10, because if you have to send that to Japan, you've lost money. Which means that you're not going to be able to deliver your record, which means that there's, it's a threat all the time.
Yeah, sure.
And when we're working with the larger bands, a band like, we did the Ben Folds 5, that was our first US top 10 album. We were talking, tens of thousands of sales, and it was a logistical thing. There was a big piece to that, and getting CDs into boxes was a challenge for them.
Yeah.
And they did it, and it's it was a success. But I think that we got to look at these things as how they can fit into the music industry and not be just a standalone. You fund it and then it goes away, because there's a consequence to that.
Thanks for joining me today. So we have Emily White from Whitesmith Entertainment, and we have David Balfour from Record of the Day. So now, of course, direct fan and crowdfunding were the buzzwords of Midem this year. And on that front, how do you feel the market is maturing in terms of offerings and services that are helping you to do your job? And would you like to see more, or are you starting to feel like the market is maturing in that sense?
Well, I think crowdfunding is maturing because it's expanding. I took on our first athlete last year, two-time Olympic swimmer and gold medalist Anthony Irvin, and we ended up doing a crowdfunding Indiegogo campaign for him to go on the World Cup circuit and go to Singapore and Dubai and all over the place, because it wasn't being funded by the governing body that he represents. So it ended up being an incredible experience, just as it is in music, but we were the first to do it in swimming, where he deepened his relationship with his fans, really created an intimate experience with them, whether he's writing songs for them, and this is an athlete, or sending postcards from all over the world. So, what that shows is crowdfunding is always going to exist. It's kind of the ultimate direct-to-fan. So, yeah, I only see it growing, but it has to be the right artist, and it has to be done right. So, you need to have that relationship with your fans, and Anthony Irvin in particular has a global fan base. Yeah.
I think the running theme here is that there's a lot of managers on Midem, and managers are taking more and more roles on, as you know very well. And the live side is another one of those sides where managers is having a huge input, and there's companies out there that are helping you to manage that side and even crowdfund that side, or understand where you want those gigs to be socially, instead of just booking something and hoping that people show up. So. So how do you feel about that, and what's your involvement in organizing artist tours and making sure that it turns out profitable for everybody?
Well, like I mentioned, I have a strong background in tour management and production. So live and booking strategy has always been incredibly important to me. We certainly work closely with all of our artist agents and rely on that, but we do work as a team. That being said, I would love to see the booking industry catch up with technology and everything that's going on here at Midem, and Songkick's Detour platform, I think, could finally be that. I am so sick of booking a show, spending money on promo, and hoping that people show up. With all of the data and location services that are available, there's no reason why fans can't. I mean, I wanted to do this with an artist last year. He lives in Nashville and who's brand new, and we had all these drivers and a lot of promo going on, and I wanted to set it up where, and I mentioned this at Hack Day, I don't know if the Hack made it, but if 50 fans bought a ticket to a show that didn't exist yet within a 50-mile radius of Nashville, we would book a show. And 100 within 100 miles and 250, he would come play anywhere within the lower 48 states. And I went to multiple platforms, nobody could do it. So I think Songkick's Detour is finally going to make that happen, which is exciting. So there's so much the live sector can get out of technology, and I think it'll only continue to grow. It makes sense. It has to.
Yeah. And David, on live, what are your thoughts?
I agree that the Songkick thing is absolutely amazing, and I think there's a tendency in the business today to look at data too much as like a panacea that's going to tell you everything that you need to know, when if your gig isn't good or your record isn't decent, none of it counts for anything. But
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, things like this that can connect you with a relevant audience in the right place who is interested, and maybe even make you go somewhere else to play a gig somewhere you wouldn't even have thought of, it's just really exciting.
Yeah. We've got Kevin Wortis here, who is the partner and director of the label services company Girlie Action. Let's talk about, because of course, one of the most
probably the most famous, crowd-funded campaign of last year was Amanda Palmer's, which was the first to reach over $1 million target for a musician, which is incredible. But of course, people are taking that as sort of a benchmark and think, oh, it's so great to do crowdfunding, and then we looked at some figures towards the end of last year when some of the labels published their spending on A&R, and you compare the amounts of money that are being generated through crowdfunding with the spend of majors on A&R, and of course it's a tiny amount of that portion.
Right.
So how do you work on releases that don't have the same amount of publicity as Amanda Palmer's, and how do you deal with maybe a campaign that had a little bit of a harder time to get started and to get going?
Everything's got scale. I mean, the Amanda Palmer one blew up, and we certainly didn't go in thinking that we were going to gross $1 million. There are smaller ones. We did a Kickstarter campaign for an artist called Cody Chestnut. In the rest of the world, he was released on One Little Indian, which is a great label, and he's got a history with it. His pedigree, his legacy in the US is self-releasing, but he needed some funds to do it. And he wanted to bring us in full service. He simply didn't have the cash flow for it. So we presented him with a Kickstarter campaign, and we came up with a figure that he needed, which was $20,000, and put together a set of packages and bundles that we thought his fans would like, and rolled it out, and we made it. It didn't blow the door off that goal. I can't recall where we ended, but it was just positive, just over 20,000, and it was a total success in terms of what we set out to do. And that was very effective. And what that did was it's effectively pre-sale. So it's not that he didn't feel like he could afford it at the end of the day. It was just simply a cash flow issue. So we set up a pre-sale. We used the Kickstarter platform to do that. And the money came in. That took care of some of the expenses that he had to self-release. And he's off to the races on his first US tour this month.
Glad to welcome to the show today, to Digital Music Trends Midem 2013 coverage, Vincent Borel. He's the co-founder and head of business for WebDoc. And hi, Vincent, how's it going today?
Good, thanks.
And Olivier de Simone, who's head of music. How's it going?
Hi, good. Thanks for having us.
All right, so I've introduced them as, WebDoc, but of course you can see that we have t-shirts that say "You Are" on them, and so I have to ask you guys first of all, what is that all about and what's happening?
I think it's your turn.
Like Olivier said, it's my turn, and it's going to be your turn pretty soon. So WebDoc is rebranding into UrTurn, and with it comes the next generation of our social expression platform.
That's great. So how did that come about? Of course, it's what if anybody would describe it as a pivot for the company, and a new name, and a new approach to how you do things. So how did that come about, and how did you decide to migrate from WebDoc to UrTurn?
Yeah, I think like any startup, it's a constant learning experience, and you learn from your users and from their uses. And over the past year, we've last year, at the same time, we were lucky enough to win the Midem Lab, which got us a lot of publicity within the music industry. And very soon after, we started, getting fairly decent traction on the music, and it just kept growing over the year. And we were getting more and more requests from labels and artists who were trying to find a deeper sense of engagement with their fans, and they were wanting to leverage user-generated content as a means of developing that tighter interaction. And so through WebDoc, they were able to actually get fans to publish content about the artist or around the artist, which spread the word and group the fans together around the content they were creating. And while doing this process, we kept trying to optimize and improve that experience for the fans and making it more natural and more pleasant for them. And I think as we were doing this process, we kind of keyed on something that we today call expressions, which is at the heart of UrTurn. And expressions came about with this notion of being able to create interactive templates where users are very easily able to insert personal content into a pre-formatted post that can contain many elements. So it could be, multiple medias, multiple pictures, or pictures and sound, pictures and video, and include also, the template defines kind of the visual mood and visual design.
Of course, yeah. So I'm here with Max Ciocciola, the founder and CEO of the company Musixmatch. Let's start with your latest news. So you have some announcement to make for this week?
Yeah, we just reached, we're really proud about 10 million users using Musixmatch services. We prefer to be, name it a services much more than apps.
Yeah.
And we just raised it additionally for $1 million to continue growing, especially in Asia and US.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back and look at how you started. You started in 2010.
We started in 2010, and the original idea was very simple. I've been in my past experience, dealing a lot with those traffic coming from those really crappy and illegal lyric sites.
Yeah,
I don't know much of you knows that lyrics has been kind of the most searched word. Currently is just the second or third word on Google.
Yeah,
and that drives, just to give you a number, around 800,000 million unique visitors per month.
Wow.
I mean, everywhere in the world. I mean.
Yeah.
So I found that there was a bug. The most searched content around music, the experience was pretty bad because, what about if I'm here now and I want to get, lyrics from my own music, because that's what we basically was very successful. People, they want to basically and first get the lyrics for the music they have in their phone.
Of course.
So there was a bug, and then we tried to solve addressing, worldwide licensing, structure with the most important top publisher. It took almost 2 years, but then we made it. And then, we tried, first of all, we had the idea to sub-license, this content to third party, which means, basically have an API, an open API.
And a B2B basis.
Exactly.
Basically.
I mean, it kind of, we were running, we ran all these fantastic music hack day.
Yeah.
They helped us a lot because, being just in front of all the music industry.
Of course.
And it was not scalable that because, when you have to convince someone else about what you're doing, about the potential, then it just sucks, it doesn't scale. So we said, let's do it on our own in the way we do believe. And so that was very fast because last year, to give you an idea, at the Mobile World Congress, so exactly 1 year ago, we announced 3 million users.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and the big news is that we are adding 1 new million user per month. The reason
That's impressive growth.
The reason we're growing so much is pretty simple. Musixmatch let you scan all your music and match it with lyrics, let you identify, with the fingerprint, the music and getting the lyrics. And the experience is awesome because we have synchronized lyrics.
Yeah.
So this means, people are spending hours just singing,
Yeah.
And that's working.
I'm happy to welcome to the show today Andrew Teacher from Musicmetric and also Daniel Savage from Musicmetric as well. So there were a couple of interesting bits of news that came out last week that are pretty important for the company. So let's start with the fundraise. What happened there?
We just raised our second round of VC money, approximately $5 million.
Wow.
Which is amazing in that it shows that the financial community has a lot of confidence in our sector and our company specifically.
Yeah.
It's also a good bellwether as far as how people in the music and entertainment industry are starting to really value the use of metrics and data in what they're doing in their day-to-day marketing activities.
Yeah.
And, ultimately that funding is allowing us to make the product even better. It's already best in class. and we're now kind of going into overdrive to continue to make system enhancements and make other deals with other data providers to make the system great.
Talking about the Spotify deal, so can you explain? There's been a fair amount of press around that, but can you explain essentially what it is and what it means for the company in a fairly simple way?
Sure. I mean, for those who are not familiar with the Musicmetric product, basically, we take in data from a number of different sources, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Vimeo, Vivo, anybody that, the major data providers. We take all that in and we formulate it into a coherent dashboard, which allows for analysis of not only the individual metrics, but also how they all work together and the interrelationship between them. So the Spotify deal is a major innovation for us in that it provides streaming data and it's regionalized by virtue of the fact that Spotify operates on a regional level. So rights holders will be able to see streaming data for their artists in that particular country. So you'll be able to see, for example, in addition to your Facebook fan acquisition, your Twitter followers, et cetera, your YouTube plays, you'll be able to see. And I increased my Spotify streaming in the United States by 21%. And, what does that mean? And the other thing I think is really interesting is that as an industry, we will start to be able to analyze the correlation between streaming and illegal file trading, which we're the only company to track illegal file trading in the robust way that we do. And we've already seen some leading indicators that as streaming increases, we're seeing decreases in illegal file trading in those territories. So I think as we have the full rollout of the Spotify information, I think that'll become even more apparent.
I'm here with Eliane Lindgall, who's a writer for The Guardian. Of course, many of you will know her for her columns on The Guardian. And today you are actually on one of the panels that are probably going to be written most about from Midem, because it had some fairly heavyweight people on it, starting with European Commissioner Michel Barnier and also Paul McGuinness and Axel Dauchez from CEO of Deezer. So tell me a little bit about your experience on the panel.
Well, first of all, it's the first time I've met Michel Barnier, and I think his speech was really encouraging, and I really, really hope that he will succeed in implementing what he was talking about. And it was really good to hear somebody that actually seemed to be on the side of creators and to seem to understand the reality that we're facing, and in so many ways. It's one of the few times I've heard something coming out of Brussels that, because a lot of the times we feel like we're being just completely bombarded by people who are just completely pro-tech but not pro-content. And I think he understood the problems we're facing when it comes to pan-European licensing, which of course are things that we can do on the side of, me as a songwriter, which is that I was there in the capacity of a songwriter. I could certainly appreciate if there would be more transparency and accountability amongst collection societies. Some are a lot better than others.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not going to name names, but there are certain countries where I never see anything, and there's certain countries where the reporting is really, really good.
Absolutely.
And I think that needs to be streamlined, and there needs to be accountability. And he seemed to understand that, and that would be good for music services as well. We'd be able to do pan-European licenses, much more streamlined. Money would actually get to the people who created the content. So I feel really, really positive about that. I think that what Paul also brought up, Paul McGuinness, I think he said he wasn't going to do any Google bashing, but is always the key word for that. I think that we need, and he seemed to understand that there needs to be, it can't be so one-sided for a few conglomerates or corporations against something that Europe is very, very good at, which is content creation.
Absolutely.
I think we're punching above our weight a lot, and we also have a history of respecting authors' rights. And it would be terrible, like horrendous, if we threw all that out because we thought that maybe we could get in the league of a Google revenue, which is not going to happen if we don't actually pay for content, because content costs money.
I'm here with Nate Auerbach. He's a music evangelist for Tumblr. Well, and how did you find the Midem experience here, and how was the reception for Tumblr? Did you feel like people have enough awareness about it?
Hopefully they do now.
Yeah,
because it's been very warm reception. The response that I get is, I love Tumblr. I didn't know Tumblr was doing music stuff. Or there are people who have come up to me and said, I've seen all of the music stuff in the last few months on Tumblr because I'm on it and I love it, and we're excited for more.
Yeah,
and Midem's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm really happy to welcome to the show Martin, David, and Sid Lawrence. I take the reins of this conversation, and
maybe bring it back into order.
And we're going to talk about the Hack Day. Yeah. Yay! Yeah. Okay, so this was actually a slightly different Hack Day from usual because you had a little bit more time than usual to finish the hacks and to present a more polished, finished project. Then, because it's usually 24 hours, and you had more like 36 this time. Yeah. So how did it go? Or how do you feel about that?
Well, it turned out it went brilliantly. Yeah, like there were 22 hacks presented on stage today. It was 18 people presenting over the course of about 1 hour. Which is the thing is, like, we get a very limited amount of time to present the stuff that gets built, right? Because we have to take it out of the traditional Music Hack Day sort of realm and take it down to the conference level, which means that we have to stick it into the sort of Midem track at that stage, which means we get 1 hour on stage. We can't really run over much of the time that we get allocated. So we have to try to find a way to fit 18 to 24 hacks into about an hour. And I think we ran over by about 10 minutes today, and that was no problem at all. Like, we got there. Luckily, we had like nothing after us, so we were able to do so. And that's one of the reasons why the Midem Hack Day is so small in terms of the amount of developers that actually get invited to come out here. Because if we did like something traditional, like a normal Music Hack Day with 150 people, it could go on for like 3 to 4 hours. And you can imagine putting that up in front of a conference level. Like, not only are you not presenting to a room full of developers, you're presenting to a room full of people who work in the music industry. And if you try to do that for 4 hours, they just sit there and go. After about an hour. So you make it entertaining. You try to, get everybody to work towards building something that's going to be entertaining. There's going to be something that someone's not seen before, but if nothing else, like, go up on stage and just like have some fun and be, like, over the top a little bit with what it is that you build, and build something that's very visual. Like, a lot of the hacks that came out this weekend were extremely visual. Yeah. They either involve like people conducting stuff or, working with like, outside components to affect music and that kind of thing. And I think that really worked very, very well for the whole time. And it's very different to a Music Hack Day in that sense. But then when we're up here in the room, it is very traditional Music Hack Day. All it is taking a bunch of people that are passionate about music and technology and giving them the opportunity to spend 24 to 48 hours in a room with no distractions and just build something very cool.
Yeah. So we have Emily White from Whitesmith Entertainment, and we have David Balfour from Record of the Day. So a final question, Midem, relevant, more relevant now with the tech side, how did you find the conference overall, not just for the hosting, but for the meetings that you had and the business that you managed to get out of it?
Midem is incredibly relevant. I think it is the most important global conference that we have in the music industry. This is my 4th Midem, so it's hard for me to compare to back in the day. But, with their focus on tech and inviting a lot of our friends and colleagues, it makes a big difference. So I love meeting with people I respect. and that are very legendary people in the industry. But, you know, the tech scene here is unbelievable. I always come away from Midem with two things: a deeper international presence far beyond Western Europe, Japan, Australia, the territories that I've generally dealt with in addition to the US. Suddenly we're meeting with people in Malaysia, Israel, South Korea, and just making some incredible deals and things happen. And then additionally, I always come out of it with new tech platforms because everybody's here.
I mean, we will never stop coming to Midem, really. It's obviously there are fewer people here, but the people that we want to see are all still here, especially the Americans are all here, which is so important for us. But it's, like you said, the one global event that everyone's at. And you know, the thing that I always come away with every year is this picture of where we're going over the next 12 months. And it's always been accurate, actually. By the end of 3 days talking to so many people, you go, okay, we understand where we are as business at the moment, and we can spend the next few months, you know, thinking about that and putting plans into effect. And it's absolutely invaluable. It's brilliant for that.